New York State Comptroller's Office released an audit of the City of Lockport's cash flow. The Comptroller's report indicates that the problem stems from two factors. The city used fund balance as a financing source for operating expenditures until it was depleted. And number two, the city failed to maintain accurate accounting records or prepare an adequate cash flow analysis. The city's audited financial statements for the year ending in 2012 included account balances that were materially misstated. I was verbally informed of these concerns by the Comptroller's Office in April. Since that time, I've taken all steps that the Comptroller's Office has recommended to me to address the city's cash flow problem. Specifically, in June, it was recommended to me that the City of Lockport pursue deficit financing as a means to repay a revenue anticipation note from 2013, as well as previous year's fund deficits. I acted swiftly and was able to obtain Common Council, New York State Senate, and Assembly approval for the deficit financing legislation 6 days later. Between May and June, 5 city positions were vacated due to retirement, resignation, or job elimination. None of those positions have been refilled in an effort to reduce city expenses. We recently took action to have the city get out of the ambulance business, thereby reducing minimum manning staffing levels in the fire department. This process is underway and is expected to take effect within the next month. This will immediately reduce the overtime costs in direct response to an area of concern identified in the audit. Last week, I submitted the city's application to the New York State Financial Restructuring Board for a full review of city operations. If accepted, the board will review all aspects of city government and recommend measures to restructure, share services, and increase efficiencies. Over the past few months, I have made many necessary and difficult decisions, and I will continue to make the tough choices that I need to on behalf of Lockport taxpayers. I will continue to work closely with the Comptroller's Office and other state officials and accept their assistance and recommendations to improve Lockport's finances. I will continue to work to find ways to reduce city spending while continuing to provide essential services. For the past few months, I've been reviewing the structure of the Treasurer's Office. We recently brought in an accounting consultant to assist in correcting our financial statements and provide us with a more accurate accounting of the city's finances. The Treasurer recently informed me that he is contemplating not seeking re-election next year. As I indicated in my response to the Comptroller's Office last month, I'm working on restructuring the Treasurer's Office to ensure that accurate and timely accounting records will be maintained going forward. The Common Council and I will be finalizing these plans in the coming weeks. I will continue to face our fiscal challenges head-on, and I will consider all measures to take swift action to ensure that our cash flow and fiscal outlook improve. I will take the difficult steps necessary to right our ship, and I will continue to keep the public apprised of our efforts through an open dialogue. I expect difficult decisions will be facing me and the Common Council over the coming months, and I want to assure the public that we will address them. As I said in March in my inaugural address, the city's finances are of paramount importance to me and my administration, and I have and I will continue to do everything within my power to get the city's finances back on track. I will continue to work diligently and put all of my efforts into ensuring that our city will come out of this stronger. And I am confident that the city's best days lie ahead. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Will you have to address this by maybe raising taxes?
We're not sure at this point. We do have a budget consultant, a CPA firm, that will be working with us to come up with our budget in the coming weeks. So I can't answer that at this point.
With the fire issue, some are concerned about as many as, 5 cuts you're looking at possibly if you get rid of the 2 ambulances?
We're looking to reduce minimum manning on a daily basis. We have not definitively decided the number in the fire department going forward.
What are you looking at this point? What's the range? And the other question is, some say the ambulances are a moneymaker, or could be. $600,000 I've heard is one figure that these ambulances bring in to the city. Why give that source of revenue up at a time when the city is at its the height height of its crisis?
The reason that we're looking at giving up that revenue source is because the cost to the city is much greater than the revenue. So the net effect is that we will be saving money by reducing that ambulance service.
Is it true, though, that the ambulances are bringing in $600,000?
They bring in revenue, but not enough to offset the cost.
What are the costs then? Well,
We estimate them about approximately $1 million per year. So there'll be a savings of $400,000 going forward.
and what are the costs involved in $1 million? Why does it cost so much to operate them?
We have to man our department accordingly. So if we don't provide ambulance service, we can reduce the number of men on each shift in the fire department, and thereby reducing the number of overtime hours per day.
Could you be compromising safety in the city of Lockport?
Absolutely not. We will not compromise safety. In fact, the ambulance providers that we've spoken with have indicated that by going with a private provider, they will be able to backfill. Currently, we have 2 ambulances. If we go with a private provider and we have a need for more than 2 ambulances at a given time, they can backfill and bring in additional ambulances as necessary, where we can't do that right now.
And one more follow-up question, and I'll stop for a minute. When I talk about safety, there are concerns, even citizens I've talked to today, that if you begin cutting back even more in the fire department, you run the risk of not enough people responding to fires on the scene, and a potential public safety issue with enough people to handle it.
We absolutely will not impact on public safety. We will be manning the department within the range that is safe according to the fire chief and our fire board. They set those determinations, and we'll make sure that the public is safe.
Was there anything in the auditor's report that surprised you or that you disagreed with?
They came to me in April and verbally explained to me a lot of the statements that they put into the written report. So I was not surprised when I read the written report. And, we're going to continue to look at everything that they indicated and move forward with their recommendations.
And why don't you just get on with cutting the minimum manning back to 7, since you won the lawsuit and the audit states that you're on track for $1 million in fire department overtime this year, and fire department overtime, it says, is one of your main reasons for your cash crunch.
Right. We're looking at September 15th at getting out of the ambulance business. So that would be the point in time that we're looking forward to doing that. We need to have all the other measures in place before we can fully do that.
Why doesn't the Common Council do something in regard to mid-year force reductions? You mentioned sort of obliquely that there might be mid-year force reductions in your response to the auditor.
Right. That may be coming forward in the near future. I can't comment on that right now.
How are negotiations coming with the union? Is it possible that you could restructure the department, restructure the number of platoons and the hours, and cut back on overtime that way without having to cut manpower?
I'm not prepared to answer anything about union negotiations right now.
Are you close, do you think? I mean, it's been 2 years almost.
I can't speak to that right now.
Do you agree whether or not that $4.6 million, do you believe that you will have a deficit of $4.6 million at the end of this year and that the city will be out of cash?
The $4.6 million is not related only to this year. It's related to past year's deficits as well. If we get the deficit financing in place, that would address that issue and certainly would address our cash flow as well.
Do you think you'll be broke by the end of this year?
We hope not. We're looking at it day by day to make sure that we're doing what we can to move forward.
Mayor, how much were you able to bring in? How much were you able to bring in on that emergency basis, state legislature approval, and how much more do you need?
When that legislation is signed, which we hope it is signed soon, we have up to $5.3 million that we may be borrowing.
And is that what are you looking at by the end of December, based on the control?
What do you mean by that?
Your overall, you're looking at 4.6 by the end of December, right? So you would have enough to carry?
That's correct.
And
Only if you get the borrowing, though, you'll have enough to get through the year.
We need the borrowing.
If you don't get it, if the governor, for whatever reason, doesn't sign that, then what?
We'll have to develop other plans to address it.
when do you have to decide on whether or not you might raise taxes? There are also people concerned in the street, as you might imagine,
Sure.
Fixed incomes, a lot of property that's not taxable in the city, and their concerns are, how am I going to make ends meet?
Right. We will have that information when we develop the budget in the next month to 2 months.
How did this situation develop? So it happened over years, treasurer, the county council's finance committee, are there enough checks and balances in place? Does the city have those needs to prevent this from?
That's why we're looking at restructuring the treasurer's office so that we can make sure that appropriate accounting mechanisms are in place going forward and we don't get into this position again.
What do you mean by restructuring?
Looking at proper people in the proper positions with credentials that would guarantee effective accounting procedures.
So is the treasurer who's in office now not capable of handling what he was supposed to handle?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Is there any official misconduct, but how are you viewing the performance there? It seems like people were misled. I don't know exactly what the words were of the controller, but do you think people were misled in the way the bottom line was presented because you seem to be taken by surprise?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that either.
Is there an investigation underway looking into that at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
The controller's reports talked about specifically poor record keeping. Were you surprised to know that there was poor record keeping in the treasurer's office?
We became aware last September that we had a fiscal crisis, and that's when the city was put on the state's fiscal distress list. At that time, we became aware that we had a negative fund balance. Prior to that, we were not aware of that. So that was the point at which we started to realize that perhaps there were some difficulties in our finances, as well as the accounting.
This is the second audit in the last 8 months in which the Controller's Office has been extremely negative about Mr. White's job performance. Should he resign?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Would you ask for it?
I'm not going to comment on that right now.
How many years back did all of these problems start? You're saying it was years past. How long ago?
It's hard for me to say. I know at least 3 to 4, possibly longer than that. In fact, last week at the council meeting, the council had to write off account transfers from many years back, due tos and due froms, where accounts loaned other accounts money, and that was going back many years. So I believe that there's been some problems in that area for many years.
And Mr. White made a comment to me that poor communication, he thinks, among departments was partly to blame. Do you believe that?
I do believe there was inadequate communication between departments in the past. Yes.
You said earlier that Mike indicated that he may not seek re-election. Has he indicated that he may leave prior to the upcoming election?
He has not indicated that to me.
Mayor, if you've got a city treasurer who's an elected official like yourself, how are we going to ensure that we're going to have a capable, qualified person to fill that out?
That's why we're looking to restructure that office.
In what sense?
Those plans will be coming forward in the future. I don't have a definitive plan to release right now, but I know the Common Council and I will be discussing it.
Would that require a charter revision?
Yes, it would.
So are you planning on cutting jobs other than just the fire and police situation?
I can't say definitively right now. That's something that we will have to consider as we go forward.
So people who hear this news today, who work for the city of Lockport, may be a little bit weary of their job status. How do you calm their nerves?
We're doing the best we can every day, taking all the comptroller's recommendations into consideration and implementing those.
So no timetable on when it would?
I don't have a timetable.
Is the reason you're getting rid of the 2 ambulances in order to cut back in the fire department?
The reason that we're getting rid of the ambulances is to save on the fire department overtime, as well as find a way to provide that service at no cost to the city of Lockport. So by privatizing it, we have private companies that provide ambulance services all over Western New York, and very few municipalities are in the ambulance business any longer, simply because it's not affordable to do so. So we'll be joining the ranks of the other communities that see the prudence in having a private company provide that.
But you still have to pay for that, right?
No, we do not.
The city privatized garbage a couple of years ago. Looking at privatizing the ambulance service now, are there other departments or divisions that you're looking to privatize to save funds?
Actually, what we will be interested in hearing is what the New York State Financial Restructuring Board looks at. They will be looking at all of the city's operations and determining if there are other areas that we should privatize or if we should have shared services with other communities. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from the state in that regard.
Mayor, what if they asked you or suggested to you that we merge the city and the town? grab some of that massive tax base that they've got, and that $8 million surplus in September.
We will listen to every recommendation that New York State puts forward.
When you took office, you sold off the mayor's car. I know you got rid of a couple other surplus things. Are there surplus items, surplus land, are there things that we have in reserve to liquidate, or are we bare bones now?
We continue to look at any equipment or vehicles that we don't need. I know that there are some items on the agenda this evening that we will be auctioning off due to their lack of necessity any longer. So we'll continue to look at that, and if things come up, we will probably do that.
Mayor, when do you actually run out of money to pay people?
We don't have a definitive date. I know the comptroller is thinking at some point in September, but we are hopeful that if our deficit financing goes through soon, that will address that problem, and we will not run out of money at that point.
Is there any way short of that you can guarantee that people will be paid after September?
We're looking at it on a day-by-day basis.
With the $5 million funding, how much time does that buy the city?
That would get us through the end of this year, and then it would be, on the Common Council and myself to ensure that we have a budget in place for next year that can address, where we start the year out.
Would you consider a control board?
It's really not the city's decision to do that. Really, that would be New York State, I believe, looking at our situation and making that recommendation. And we were informed that the New York State Comptroller's Office will have the final say on our budget this year, so they will have firm oversight on the council's passing the budget this year.
They don't have anything to do with a control board, though. They can make recommendations, but it's not up to them. I mean, have you reached out at all to any state lawmakers to even consider the possibility of right-sizing things?
I'm not sure that we're at that point yet, but I would consider that if we need to. Anything further? Thank you.
Thank you.
No, he was not in here.